Welcome to the deep dive. All right, today we are plunging into the wild, controversial world of Oscar Wilde's one-act tragedy, Salomé. We've got quite the stack of source material for this deep dive, primarily the play itself, specifically the English translation by Lord Alfred Douglas, which is, well, fascinating in its own right.
Yeah, and there's also an introduction that gives us some absolutely essential context on, how this play came into being, the firestorm it ignited,
Right.
and its surprising global journey.
So our mission here is to really understand the history behind this piece. It caused immediate and intense reactions, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And then we want to dive deep into the play's opening scene and follow its unforgettable single-act arc,
We want to uncover why it was so scandalous in its time, look at its initial banning,
which is quite a story.
how it strangely found fame across Europe and became a major opera.
And explore the powerful characters and atmosphere it creates right from the start. It really grabs you.
Okay, let's get into this. The sources tell us Wilde wrote Salomé in French in 1892.
That's right, in French.
And here's a detail that immediately grabbed me. It was actually in full rehearsal right here in London, starring the legendary actress Madame Sarah Bernhardt.
The Sarah Bernhardt.
It was just abruptly prohibited by the censor.
Oh.
Shut down cold.
Prohibited, just like that. And the introduction notes Wilde's reaction was, well, classic Wilde.
Oh, yeah?
He announced he was going to change his nationality. Just, of course, but apparently, surprisingly, taken seriously by some people at the time.
Only Wilde. And according to the introduction, this government interference wasn't even unpopular.
No, it was heartily endorsed by English critics back then.
Wow. Talk about adding insult to injury.
It really wasn't an easy ride for the play in England. When it was finally published in book form, it faced what the introduction calls a chorus of ridicule.
Ridicule, like what specifically?
Critics even question Wilde's French grammar, which feels particularly petty considering a distinguished French writer had apparently reviewed and approved the text.
That's a bit rich, definitely. Though, to be fair, the Times did give him a grudging compliment, right?
Sort of. They credited him with a tour de force just for being able to write a French play intended for Bernhardt.
Ah, but Wilde pushed back on that.
He did. In a letter cited in the source, he clarified he didn't write it for Bernhardt. He said he never writes for specific actors, seeing that as the work of the artisan, not the artist.
Strong words.
But he was proud she saw beauty in it and looked forward to her performing it in Paris, which he pointedly called a vivid center of art where religious dramas are often performed.
A clear jab at censorious London.
Exactly. That comparison tells you a lot about the cultural climate difference.
Speaking of the book, the English translation we're looking at is by Lord Alfred Douglas.
Susie.
And the edition is famously illustrated by Aubrey Beardsley. Now, this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The introduction reveals that Beardsley reportedly drew inspiration for some of his finest work, from a play he apparently didn't admire, and by a writer he cordially disliked.
Wow. That's quite something. What do you make of that?
It's fascinating, isn't it? It resulted in what the source calls odd tangent art that perhaps lacks a certain sense of physical presence without tactile value.
Right. Kind of ethereal or detached.
But the images are undeniably powerful and unsettling. The woman in the moon, enter Herodias, the eyes of Herod, the climax.
Iconic Beardsley images.
And there are even these subtle, amusing caricatures of Wilde hidden within the illustrations.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. In the colophon, that imprint or note at the end of the book is called a real masterpiece and a witty criticism of the play in itself.
So the art is almost having a dialogue or maybe an argument with the play.
It seems like it. Engaging with it on its own terms, maybe in spite of Beardsley's feelings about Wilde.
Okay, so despite the initial banning and the ridicule, later English productions kept trying.
They did. The sources mentioned the New Stage Club production in 1905 and the Literary Theater Club performance in 1906.
But still facing hostility.
Oh, yeah. Both still drawing rancor and deliberate misrepresentation from critics. The 1906 one sounds like it was quite lavish, though.
How so?
Beautiful costumes and staging by Charles Ricketts, and a marvelous impersonation of Herod by Robert Farquharson. But even trying to put it on was still a fight.
Absolutely. And this is where the story takes a surprising turn.
Right, because Wilde is struggling in England.
Exactly. While facing this hostility, Salomé was quietly finding its footing across Europe. The introduction points out it became part of European literature, performed regularly or intermittently.
Whereabouts?
In countries like Holland, Sweden, Italy, France, and Russia.
And it was translated into every European language, including Czech.
Every European language. That's a remarkable contrast to its English reception.
It truly is. It even became a staple of the German stage.
Get this. Performed there more often than any play by an English writer except Shakespeare.
Wow. More than anyone but Shakespeare. That's huge.
Think about that scale of success versus the English critical response. It's night and day.
And that international popularity paved the way for a monumental adaptation, didn't it? Richard Strauss.
Yes, the composer. He was preparing his now famous opera based on the play precisely as those negative English criticisms were resurfacing around late 1905.
Talk about timing.
The opera premiered in Dresden in December 1905. And what's notable is that it used the actual words of Wilde's play, translated into German by Madame Hedwig Lachmann.
So a direct setting of the text.
Pretty much. Though the introduction mentions that English musical journalists may be trying to evade an awkward truth about the play's success abroad, often referred to the opera as merely founded on Wilde's drama, rather than acknowledging it was a direct adaptation.
A bit of spin, perhaps.
Seems like it. Even Wilde himself seemed to foresee its musical quality, though.
Real?
Yeah, in De Profundis, he wrote about how the refrains, whose recurring motifs make Salomé so like a piece of music, and bind it together as a ballad.
Interesting. He sensed that musicality.
And the very first public performance of the play itself finally happened in Paris in 1896 at the Théâtre Libre by Montminy.
While Wilde was.
While Wilde was actually incarcerated, yeah. A letter from him expresses gratification at this, thankful to still be seen as an artist, though he was, consumed by anguish at the time.
A poignant note on its turbulent path.
So that's the extraordinary history band, ridiculed, yet embraced internationally and turned into a landmark opera. Quite a journey.
Definitely. Now let's shift gears and dive into the play's text, starting with that intense opening scene.
Okay.
The setting is described vividly in the source. A great terrace in the palace of Herod, set above the banqueting hall.
Got it.
There's a gigantic staircase, and to the left, an old cistern with a wall around it. It's night under the moonlight.
The atmosphere is immediately charged, isn't it? Heavy with tension and a sense of foreboding.
Totally. And we meet the guards in attendance, first the young Syrian, the page of Herodias, soldiers, a Cappadocian, a Nubian, lots of different people milling about.
And the young Syrian is instantly captivated by Salomé.
Yeah, he declares her beauty is exceptional tonight. But the page of Herodias, right off the bat, offers this chilling warning.
What does he say?
It's dangerous to look at her too much, predicting ominously something terrible may happen.
Ooh, sets the tone perfectly.
Meanwhile, you hear this loud, disruptive noise spilling from the banqueting hall. The first soldier asks, "What an uproar! Who are those wild beasts howling?"
Wild beasts, huh?
And the second soldier identifies them as the Jews, explaining they're always like that, disputing their religion.
Arguing about angels, wasn't it? Pharisees and Sadducees.
Exactly. The soldiers find it ridiculous.
Yeah.
But amidst this worldly chaos and religious debate, the young Syrian remains fixated. How beautiful is the Princess Salomé tonight?
He's obsessed already.
And you get these other voices, too, adding texture to the world.
Peculiar.
A Nubian talking about blood sacrifice, a Cappadocian lamenting how the Romans have driven out his country's gods, believing they're dead. There's even talk of different wines being drunk inside.
Right. It creates this rich, layered background of different cultures, beliefs, conflicts, decadence, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And then cutting through it all, you hear the voice of Jochance the prophet.
The Baptist, coming from the cistern.
His voice is unsettling, prophetic. Some soldiers dismiss it as ridiculous things.
But others...
Others, like the first soldiers, see him as a holy man, even very gentle.
So conflicting views right away.
And the cistern itself is called a strange prison. The source adds this grim piece of history, too.
Oh.
Herodias' elder brother and first husband was imprisoned there for 12 years before being strangled by the executioner Naaman on Herod's command with a death ring.
Grimm is right. That tells you a lot about the power dynamics and cruelty within this court before Salomé even enters.
Definitely sets a dark background.
And
then she does enter. She's left the feast.
Why?
She expresses immediate relief at the fresh air and a clear disdain for the people inside, the Jews, barbarians, Egyptians, Romans. She can't stand them.
She sounds bored, almost disgusted.
Her attention quickly turns to the moon. She's fascinated by it.
What does she say about it?
She sees it as a little piece of money, a little silver flower, and she fixates on its perceived nature. The moon is cold and chaste, a virgin never having defiled herself with men.
Purity and coldness. That feels significant. A key motif.
And then Joanna's voice is heard again, delivering a curse.
A curse against.
Salomé realizes he's speaking of her mother, Herodias, accusing her of abominations and incestuousness.
Referencing her marriage to Herod, her brother-in-law. That's direct.
And Salomé is instantly captivated by his voice. Not the words, maybe, but the sound of it.
Interesting.
She expresses this powerful, almost defiant desire to speak with him, even though Herod has strictly forbidden anyone from approaching the prophet.
So she's breaking the rules already. She tries the soldiers first.
Yeah, but they refuse, citing the Tetrarch's command. They're not messing with Herod.
So she turns to the young Syrian, Nerebath, the captain of the guard.
The one who's already completely besotted with her.
Clever. What does she offer him?
She promises him a flower, a smile, anything if he'll just bring Jokan out. She's manipulating his infatuation.
And despite the absolute prohibition from Herod and his own fears, the source says he was terrified.
He can't refuse her. His infatuation overrides everything. He gives the order.
Wow. That sets the stage for the play's central explosive confrontation. Jokanan comes out.
And when Jokan emerges, he immediately speaks, curses, initially seeming to address someone in silver, maybe Salomé, maybe the moon.
But quickly turns his fire directly onto Salomé and Herodias.
Right. And Salomé's first reaction to seeing him is powerful. She calls him terrible.
Terrible how?
She focuses intensely on his eyes, describing them in stark, almost repulsive terms, like black holes burned by torches, black caverns, black lakes, really dark imagery.
But almost instantly, her perception shifts dramatically, doesn't it?
Completely. She begins to describe his physical appearance, but now through a lens of purity and beauty, totally contradicting herself.
So he's wasted, yes, but like a thin ivory statue, an image of silver.
And she claims he is chaste as the moon is. Her fascination compels her to look closer.
But Jokanan completely rejects her gaze. He won't have it.
No, he commands her to leave, identifying her with powerful, damning labels from Scripture. The daughter of Babylon, daughter of Sodom, daughter of adultery.
And tells her to seek the Son of Man.
But this rejection doesn't deter Salomé. If anything, it seems to intensify her obsession.
That's when she makes that shocking confession.
Jokanan, I am amorous of thy body. And she describes his body with this intense, almost overwhelming imagery of purity and beauty.
Light.
White like the lilies, like snows, like roses, the feet of the dawn, the breasts of the moon. She declares there is nothing so white as thy body, and expresses a desperate desire to touch him.
And again, he rejects her. Cites Eve, blames woman for evil.
He refuses to even listen. And this is where her language becomes more frantic, more erratic, reflecting her increasing frustration and obsession.
Her description flips again, right?
Violently. His body is now hideous, like a leper's, a whitened sepulchre.
This back and forth, this intense swing between seeing him as impossibly beautiful and utterly repulsive. It's one of the most striking things in the text, isn't it?
Totally.
Yeah.
It's clearly not really about Jokan himself. It's about the turmoil of her own desire and rejection.
Absolutely. And then her focus shifts again, now to his hair.
She describes it beautifully at first, like clusters of grapes, like the cedars of Lebanon.
And then, predictably by now, another flip.
Suddenly it's horrible, covered with mire, a crown of thorns, or a knot of black serpents writhing. The object is the same, but her perception, driven by rejection, completely changes the description.
It's all about her subjective view.
And her obsession finally locks onto his mouth. This is arguably the most infamous part of the play.
The descriptions here are intense.
Astonishing, almost excessive detail and hyperbole. A band of scarlet on a tower of ivory, a pomegranate cut with a knife, redder than flowers, redder than trumpet blasts, redder than anything imaginable.
There is nothing in the world so red as thy mouth, she declares.
And her desperate, singular demand.
Let me kiss thy mouth.
And Jokanan, unwavering, refuses completely, cursing her. And the tragic result of Salomé's obsession and Nerebath's infatuation unfolds right there. The young Syrian, Nerebath,
The one who let Jokan out.
distraught by Salomé's declared desire for Jokanan, kills himself with his sword, falling right between Salomé and Jokan.
Oh, wow. Right there between them.
The page of Herodias, his friend, laments his death, recalling his earlier premonition about the moon seeking a dead thing.
But even with the body on stage, Salome's focus doesn't waver.
Not at all. Her only thought is Jocana. Let me kiss thy mouth, Jocana.
Jocana gives one final warning, something about the angel of death, and directs her to seek the Son of Man in Galilee for remission of sins. He curses her.
And descends back into the cistern, pointedly refusing to look at her again.
Leaving Salome alone with Naboth's body.
And she just repeats her refrain, I will kiss thy mouth, Jocana, I will kiss thy mouth.
Chilling. The soldiers briefly discuss moving the body. Right, there's that line.
Oh yeah, the chilling line hinting at Herod's own nature. One notes, Herod dislikes seeing dead bodies, save the bodies of those whom he himself has slain.
Ooh, that prepares us nicely for his arrival. Herod, Herodias, and the court enter.
And Herod's immediate concern. Not the dead body, but...
Where is Salome? Where is the princess?
Right, reinforcing the unsettling focus he has on her from the start. Herodias immediately tries to stop him. You must not look at her. You are always looking at her.
She sees it too. But Herod is already fixated on the moon again.
Describing it in these increasingly disturbed, almost lewd terms. Like a mad woman, naked, reeling. Like a drunken woman, looking for lovers.
While Herodias, ever the pragmatist, dismisses this. No, the moon is like the moon, that is all.
He also insists he hears a beating of wings, vast wings, even when Herodias denies it and says he's ill. His unease is palpable.
He's seeing bad omens everywhere. He tries to distract himself, asking Salome to drink wine and eat fruit with him.
But she refuses, just as she refused the feast inside. Still focused.
And then the domestic drama of the court erupts between Herod and Herodias.
Yeah, they start sniping at each other. She insults his lineage.
He calls her sterile and questions their marriage as incestuous, fearing it brings misfortune, echoing Jocana's words.
She fires back, reminding him he took her from his brother. It gets ugly.
And amidst this conflict, Jocana's voice is heard again from the cistern.
Delivering a prophecy about someone being eaten by worms.
Herod thinks it's about a political enemy.
But Herodias knows better. She points out Jocana is clearly insulting her.
And then the scene takes another sharp turn into the theological.
Right, this complex exchange between Jewish guests, Pharisees, and Sadducees, still arguing about angels and Nazarene guests.
They debate Jochanan's identity, is he Elias, and discuss the coming messiahs and these astonishing miracles he's reportedly performing.
Like what?
Turning water into wine, healing lepers and the blind, talking with angels, raising the daughter of Jairus from the dead.
Herod's reaction to the idea of raising the dead is particularly strong, isn't it?
Very. I do not wish him to do that. I forbid him to do that, he declares, ordering this man found and told not to raise the dead.
Why? What's his reasoning?
He states it would be terrible if the dead came back. It shows his deep fear of anything that disrupts the natural order, particularly death, and the boundary between life and death. He wants control.
His agitation is escalating. He feels unseen forces, hears things, sees omens. His wife and the prophet are challenging him.
And he desperately turns back to Salome, begging her to dance for him, saying he is sad.
And in this moment of desperation, he makes the pivotal rash oath.
Promises to give her whatsoever you will, even unto the half of my kingdom, if she dances.
The classic fairy tale trope, but twisted here.
Totally. And Salome, now chillingly calm and calculating, makes him repeat the oath, swear it by his life, crown, and gods.
She locks him into it. Herodias tries to stop her.
Tells her daughter not to dance, but Salome, focused on her own desire now, agrees. She ignores her mother. Slaves bring her perfumes and the 7 veils, removing her sandals.
Herod is pleased she'll dance with naked feet, creepy, but then immediately fixates on the young Syrian's blood on the floor.
Another evil omen.
Yeah. And he also notes the moon has turned red like blood, fulfilling the prophet's earlier prophecy and deepening the sense of impending doom.
Yeah.
Everything is pointing towards disaster.
And Salome performs the dance of the 7 veils, a moment of intense, sensual display within the play.
After the dance, a delighted Herod asks for her reward. He's thrilled. Temporarily distracted, maybe?
And Salome, kneeling, delivers her shocking, infamous demand.
The head of Jocana, brought to her, presently, in a silver charger.
Wow. Just like that, Herod's reaction is immediate horror. No, no.
But Herodias, having been insulted by the prophet, is entirely approving. Ah, that is well said, my daughter. Vindictive.
What follows is Herod's frantic, increasingly desperate attempt to bribe Salome to get her to ask for anything else.
He reoffers the half of his kingdom, anything but the head.
But Salome is unyielding. She insists she wants the head for her own pleasure and relentlessly reminds him of his oath.
Herodias reinforces this, telling her daughter to hold him to his word, reminding him how Jocana insulted her, goading him.
Herod grows more and more frantic, offering this overwhelming list of lavish, impossible treasures. It's quite a sequence.
It is. He offers a gigantic round emerald from Caesar's favorite, one that lets you see things far away, larger than Caesar's own.
Then his white peacocks, gilded beaks, purple feet 50, then all 100. He boasts no other king has such birds. Pure spectacle.
And the jewels. It just keeps going. A collar of pearls like unto moons chained with rays of silver, amethysts like wine, topazes like tiger's eyes, like pigeon's eyes, like cat's eyes.
Opals that burn with ice-like flame that make men sad, onyxes like the eyeballs of a dead woman, moonstones that change with the moon, sapphires big like eggs containing the sea.
And then a long, breathless list: chrysolites, beryls, chrysoprases, rubies, sardonyx, hyacinths, stones of chalcedony. It's almost delirious.
He continues with 4 fans from parrot feathers, a garment of ostrich feathers, a crystal into which it is not lawful for a woman to look.
Ooh, mysterious.
3 wondrous turquoises with strange properties, imagining things not real, making women sterile amber cups that reveal poison, glass-encrusted sandals, mantles from the series, carbuncle and jade bracelets. The list is almost hallucinatory in its detail, reflecting his escalating desperation.
He even resorts to offering sacred items, the mantle of the high priest and the veil of the sanctuary.
Which causes gasps from the Jewish guests. That's going too far, even for him.
But through all these frantic offers, his fear of misfortune and warnings that Jokan is a holy man.
Salomé gives the same chillingly simple, unwavering answer.
Give me the head of Jokan. Over and over.
Finally, defeated, exhausted by his fear and her relentless demand, Herod sinks back.
And commands, let her be given what she asks. He sighs, acknowledging she truly is her mother's child.
Ouch. Herodias, triumphant, takes the death ring from his hand and gives it to a soldier who passes it to the executioner, Naaman.
The same one who strangled Herodias' former husband in that same cistern. The cycle continues.
Herod seems disoriented, muttering about his ring and wine, convinced some evil will befall someone. He laments his oath, seeing the tragedy whether he keeps it or breaks it.
Trapped by his own word. Herodias, meanwhile, remains steadfast in her approval. She got what she wanted.
The executioner goes into the cistern. Salomé leans over, impatient, demanding action.
She even tells the page, Naboth's friend, and the soldiers to get the head, but they recoil. They won't touch it.
And then the horrifying image described in the source.
A huge black arm, the arm of the executioner, emerges from the cistern, bearing Jochanan's head on a silver shield.
Salomé immediately seizes it, no hesitation.
Herod hides his face in horror. Herodias, chillingly, smiles and fans herself. The Nazarenes fall to their knees in prayer. It's a tableau of extreme reactions.
And then Salomé delivers her long final monologue, directly addressing the severed head of Jochanan. It's disturbing and incredibly powerful.
She speaks to the head, referencing his earlier refusal to let her kiss his mouth, declaring she will kiss it now, even bite it.
It's grotesque.
She questions why his eyes are shut, why he won't look at her, why his tongue, which she'd called a red snake, is silent.
She reminds him he scorned her, called her a harlot, yet she is Salomé, daughter of Herodias, princess of Judea, asserting her status even now.
She claims a twisted triumph. I still live, but thou art dead, and thy head belongs to me. I can do what I will.
But this triumph is immediately intertwined with expressions of love and loss. It's complex.
Yeah, she declares he was the only man that I have loved, describing his body again, now that she possesses his head, using that earlier beautiful imagery.
The column of ivory, garden full of doves, tower of silver.
And his hair and mouth, nothing in the world so black, nothing so red. Back to the superlatives.
She speaks of a consuming thirst and hunger for his beauty and body that neither wine nor fruits can appease.
And she makes this startling, almost accusatory claim that by scorning her purity, he took my virginity from me and filled my veins with fire, blaming him for her state.
She repeats her lament, that heartbreaking and defiant question. Wherefore didst thou not look at me, Jochanan?
Believing, perhaps delusionally, that if he had only looked at her, he would have loved her. It's all about his gaze, or lack thereof.
And her final, chilling summation delivered with the head in her hands.
The mystery of love is greater than the mystery of death. Love only should one consider.
It's a warped philosophy, prioritizing her destructive obsession above all else, a profoundly unsettling end to that speech.
Herod is utterly horrified by this spectacle. He finally reacts strongly.
Calls his daughter monstrous, her act a great crime, perhaps even against an unknown god. He seems genuinely shaken now.
Herodias, however, remains resolute in approving, declaring she will stay, unmoved.
Herod calls her an incestuous wife again, and consumed by fear that something terrible is imminent, declares he will not stay. He wants out.
In a panic, he orders the torches put out, the moon and stars hidden. He commands they hide in the palace, saying, "I begin to be afraid."
The slaves extinguish the torches, the stars disappear, a black cloud hides the moon, plunging the stage into darkness, except perhaps for some ambient light.
As Herod climbs the stairs to flee, Salomé's voice is heard in the darkness, speaking to the head one last time.
What does she say?
Her voice says, I have kissed thy mouth, Jocan, I have kissed thy mouth. There is a bitter taste on thy lips. Was it the taste of blood? But perchance it is the taste of love. They say that love have a bitter taste. But what of that? What of that? I have kissed thy mouth, Jocan.
She kissed the head. And at that moment, a single moonbeam falls on Salomé, illuminating her alone on the dark stage with the head.
A spotlight, almost divine or maybe demonic. Herod turns, see her bathed in that light,
and shouts the final, brutal command. Kill that woman.
The soldiers rush forward, and according to the stage direction, they crush Salomé beneath her shields.
And curtain. Wow, what an ending. Abrupt, violent.
Just utterly shocking. So looking back at the source material, the introduction points to influences like Flaubert and Maeterlinck, calling the play an essay in their specific styles.
Right, you can see that decadent symbolist influence. And you can see how Wilde's own artistic philosophy is woven through this too.
Remember his idea about borrowing from others, the monstrous tulip analogy?
Yeah, not just copying, but taking something and creating something even more extraordinary, pushing boundaries, making it his own, intensely.
And Wilde's famous quote about Salomé being a mirror,
in which everyone could see himself, the artist seeing art, the dull seeing dullness, the vulgar seeing vulgarity.
Given the extreme reactions it provoked, it certainly seemed to reflect back the anxieties and perceptions of its audience and critics.
Both the ones who ridiculed it and the ones who embraced it as groundbreaking art. It forced a reaction.
Wow, just wow. It's an incredibly intense and complex journey packed into one single act.
It really is. We've seen its turbulent birth, its banning and ridicule in England, its surprising embrace across Europe, and its transformation into a groundbreaking opera.
And we've walked through the play itself, from that tense opening scene, the clash of characters, the descent into Salomé's destructive obsession, Herod's escalating turmoil.
And that brutal, unforgettable climax. It's a masterclass in creating atmosphere and escalating tension. No wasted moments.
It really makes you think about, well, the power of forbidden desire, the destructive nature of obsession, and how perception can completely twist reality.
For the characters within the play, definitely, but also for how people reacted to the artwork itself throughout its history, it really challenges conventional morality and expectations.
It does, and it raises fundamental questions about censorship, the nature of art that provokes extreme reactions.
And what happens when a singular artistic vision is simply too much for its time and place to comfortably handle? It hit a nerve.
So what stands out to you from this deep dive into Salomé? Perhaps it's the vivid, disturbing imagery, the incredible contrast between its English and European reception, or that chilling, powerful climax.
Lots to chew on, something to consider as you go about your day.